Welcome to The New Next, a podcast that addresses current events and how they will impact the future. Co-hosted by the inquisitive public speaking champion, Mike McVeigh, and energy, economics, and technology expert, Matt Jensen. Join us as we explore all things energy, economic, tech, and political, and how they will affect our future. Well, so I won't lie, this is both interesting and kind of sad, because who knows what the future will still hold. There's still a lot, and Elon Musk is not out for the count yet, but Twitter's had some interesting things happen since that first announcement that we reported on all those months ago when Elon Musk first mentioned that he was going to buy Twitter. And it's
maybe this is another thing that we should have a flashback clip in. So if we get we can flash back to what we said before, but I think when this first announced, we talked a lot about how much they were bloated in terms of revenue per head versus other Silicon Valley firms. And we felt that, they could cut to maybe as low, I think, as 1,500 employees. So they've basically ended up to that point right now. And I think they've basically followed the playbook that we've been talking about. So it's, when we went through that scenario before, it was understanding the key drivers of cost and how they might affect on the profitability. And when we walked through the P&L, it was pretty clear that if they normalized headcount costs at that company, even, somewhat within line to other tech companies, that they would be an extremely profitable company. So they have lost revenue in advertising. Part of that's been based on the uncertainty for brands and consumers. But I think a lot of the people that are saying what's happening now is the death of Twitter. And if you look on the news sources, they're like, oh my God, everybody's leaving and stuff. This is exactly how it should work. Based on what they laid out before. You had and I think it was they laid off people, and then there was 3,500 people left. Out of those people, they basically had a link, and if you click the link, you were saying that I want to stay here. Otherwise, you'd get laid off and receive 3 months severance, which is double that they're required by law. So a lot of people click the link. I think that that's exactly how you should do it. Give the people that don't want to be there the option to leave without having to root them out. This seems chaotic, but a very efficient way, in my opinion, of culturally cleaning house. So you can start from a base level and move on. And if you look at, back 10 years ago, they had, I think, under 1,000 employees. They weren't handling that much less monthly active users. So it's basically it's a huge brand. You're unlikely to be able to build this yourself. There's definitely some economic elements going down now, and I know the banks have basically written down the debt that they provided them, but this is a long-term play, and I think it's kind of panning out how I expected it to.
The only thing that I would say that is interesting, I won't lie, I love the drama surrounding Twitter, because I've never been a fan of Twitter historically, and I have mixed feelings about Musk. So I love the drama that's going around right now. However, I do think a lot of what you brought up is accurate. The two things I would want to specifically point out. One, an article came out, and I forgot to share that with you, so I apologize, but it was talking about how whether or not Musk understands the social side of social media. Because making these kinds of decisions at SpaceX or at Tesla, where every day it seems like a different decision. It worked in that environment because everybody that was a part that was directly affected had already bought in. And I'm glad you brought up the thing about the Twitter employees choosing whether or not they wanted to stay, because that doesn't get mentioned as much. Definitely not right now. And they're bought in. But unfortunately, we're hearing, because of all the leaks and stuff, we're hearing all the different decisions, and that's not something we're used to hearing as consumers, as a public, and that shows instability especially in a product that the whole thing is social media. So
maybe I could tell a quick story that I ran across, and I think it's applicable to here of the cultural thing. I saw a tweet exchange where basically Elon Musk got in a Twitter argument with an employee that left. I believe he left, or he chose to leave. And he was basically like, the infrastructure can't sustain. There's all these problems that need to be managed and stuff, blah, blah, blah. And Elon Musk was basically like, you've been there a decade. Why didn't you do something to fix this? And I think that there's the assumption that the status quo is going to blow up because it's, it may just be a whole rat's nest waiting to blow up anyways, right? Mm-hmm. So if people aren't like, I think after this exchange, someone asked him about it, and he said that he fired the guy. So maybe he didn't lay off, but I don't really know. It's just, like you said, the drama with it. But I think that go back to that creative destruction argument. There's a level of that where you don't want to basically destroy the company, right? But you need to destroy certain cultural and institutional aspects of the company so that it can be what its purpose is to be a self-sustaining corporation, returning profits to its shareholders and providing, long-term shareholder value while supporting it as a place where people can be paid well to have a life there.
And that brings up the other side. So I believe that there's multiple things that are working towards Twitter's favor, despite my dislike for Twitter. And I always want to mention that. So if I'm coming across as pro Twitter, that it should mean something, that I'm not just like, oh yeah, Twitter's great. No, I really do not like Twitter. I do not like the platform. I don't like how it works. So one, I keep on asking myself, why would Elon have spent that much money on something that in my opinion is a surefire loss, just buying Twitter alone? If it was that non-profitable. And I know he's had some misfires in the past, but there were misfires that made sense. Like, oh, we're going to do an underground highway in LA to help fight congestion and stuff. I mean, that kind of stuff makes sense.
He made money off of it. He made money.
Right. Well, but he's not, I mean, I would separate him a little bit more from the Trump side, where Trump is all about Trump. That's how I view Trump on the political, but on the personal persona. But Musk, even though he cares about that stuff, he also generally wants to make good products. I mean, that's his history. He doesn't just get into something to screw it all up and laugh on the outside. Like, he has tried to make a better vehicle. He has tried to make space travel more reliable. Some of the other projects that didn't work out publicly were ones that the idea was for the betterment of humankind.
Yeah, truly amazing.
So I do keep that in the background. Again, I'm not a big fan of him, and I'm definitely not a fan of Twitter. But one of the things that I'm hearing, and even though it's finally starting to come true for Blizzard, World of Warcraft, I've mentioned World of Warcraft multiple times, but World of Warcraft was an insane hit. It wasn't supposed to be as big and all-encompassing as it eventually became. It went crazy. And so everybody started, instead of making unique games that were playable, like just fun, they basically ripped off World of Warcraft. And, well, which is fine, except that when all you try to do is rip off, and I'm not talking about like using World of Warcraft as a base to create a new game, like they're just trying to rip off. Well, people would go and leave and like, oh, this is the WoW killer, because that's what everybody called World of Warcraft, WoW. Rift is the new WoW killer. Star Wars, the New Republic, the Old Republic is the WoW killer. All these different games were going to be the ones that were going to finally kill World of Warcraft. And none of them did. In fact, now the numbers did go, but part of it is because the numbers were just so high to begin with that it was never a sustainable project. So when I hear people switching over, I think it's to Mastodon is the new Twitter, and everybody's talking about how fast it's grown and stuff. And this isn't to say anything about Mastodon one way or the other, whether it's a good program, but the feeling of all these reporters and all these people reporting about how great being away from Twitter is because right now Twitter has gotten stagnant. I mean, that's one reason why all this crap has gone on in the first place. It's no longer
totally.
It's no longer a fun project like it was 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's not the innovative cultural company that changed everything.
Right. And to pull it to something that's maybe even more prescient is Saturday Night Live. Like, I'm always amazed at how many people complain about how Saturday Night Live's not funny anymore, how but they keep on watching it, you know, or they might not watch it, but a new group of people watch it and they enjoy it. And I just find it all humorous. Now, maybe Mastodon eventually becomes the Twitter killer, or Elon Musk, which, I mean, let's be fair. If Twitter fails, it's going to be Elon Musk's fault, because this is one of those bad investments if that happens. But I still want to say the same thing we said when he first announced buying it. If Elon Musk is interested in it and he's willing to give up $41 billion, I mean, when Pixar was bought by Disney, when Marvel was bought by Disney, people were saying that Disney was being really stupid because these investments would not make it. And I just read I think a line yesterday that Disney spent $6 billion on Marvel. They invested over, I want to say it's like another $5 billion in all the, the 35 movies and TV shows. And they have only made approximately like $30 billion. Only they've profited $20 billion over the past 15, not even 15, past 10 years.
Yeah.
And
it's unreal.
Elon Musk is not one of those guys that was only looking in the short-term profit. He looks long-term. So as much as I don't necessarily like him, I'm kind of ambivalent about him, but I still like him more than I like Mark Zuckerberg. And I use Facebook every day.
Yeah.
I mean, I really do not like Mark Zuckerberg, but Elon Musk, I can at least I respect him. I don't necessarily like him, but I respect him. I don't like Twitter at all, but I just don't want to necessarily count it out yet.
Well, I believe the user growth's back.
Oh, is it?
I think a lot of people have joined, and there's a lot of headaches with it. Like, I've read about a bunch of racist stuff on there, but you're going to replace, I assume that they're going to replace a lot of the really hard to do manual stuff that they had been doing with humans with stuff built by some of the best AI engineers in the world. So you're talking about replacing someone that you pay $100,000 or $200,000 a year that's never getting better at solving the problem with computers that can do it thousands of times faster, millions of times faster. And that's a better long-term decision for the company, even though it's going to be chaotic in the near term. So there's a lot of examples of that, but also, you're talking about innovating the product. There's a lot of different technical things that we should talk about in the future that can be implemented to bring in monetizable stuff to the platform, but also make it actually functional for users. As like he was saying, like he wants it to be like a central app. So if you look at that, then you should look along like WeChat, for instance, as Chinese WeChat as a playbook for how he could potentially grow different products and services through that mechanism.
Yeah. And I feel like I need to say this, especially if a lot of the people that I've brought on to the Nobody's podcast, Nobody's Nobody podcast, there's definitely more of it's not intentional, but I think there's more of a liberal bent on a lot of people's, what they share, what they care about, as far as like how the world's run. And, and I definitely feel a lot of those kind of things of saying like, we want the world to be fair. We want the world to care about everybody equally. I mean, I think that is the end goal, but I also want to look at, we are still in this world. And even though I might not support a business that I feel like treats a certain race of people improperly, that business is probably still going to be doing stuff, and I need to recognize what they're doing or not doing. And I'm not talking about Twitter specifically on this, but just in general. And so I always kind of think about the people that might go like, oh, you're on this podcast also. And they start listening to this and they're like, wow, that does not sound like the Mike from the other podcast. But I think it's much more nuanced than that. And that's one of the things. It's a
different framework that we talk through. Too.
Right. Because that's one of the things I also appreciate, just the relationship with you, is because I know that you love a lot of those same people from the other podcasts, like, cause we've talked about the music and stuff. And some of those people are kind of out there. I'm sorry if it's you I'm talking about, but, but some of them are a little bit out there on some of their politics and stuff. And
which is totally cool.
In my utopia kind of world, you're like, yeah, man, I'm right there with you. But I also live in this world right here where that's not anywhere close to reality. And if we went to that reality, everything would just kind of upend right now. It would not, as much as we're talking about all the changes, it would be a lot scarier to just automatically flip to this ideal world. There has to be steps. There has to be time that processes. And
well, there would be no foundation for it.
Right.
If you just went there and
then we would come back to a worse version of what we're already in, because the foundation would still be here for this. And people are like, now we're going to penalize you. We're going to do kind of revenge type stuff. So I point that out because I know a lot of the people that are on Nobody, they're the ones that left Twitter to probably go to Mastodon kind of thing. And it'll be kind of interesting to see what happens. Are they going to keep their Twitter account? Are they going to pay the $24 a month? I'm making a joke of that because I know that they're changing it constantly.
There's hundreds of millions of people that use that. It's really hard to basically get hundreds of millions of people to change doing anything. Like we look at just politics, for instance. There's a lot of people, it's very difficult to get someone that's voted 100% of their life to be a Republican to just jump to be a Democrat. Like you always hear those stories kind of talked about, but, and because it's kind of a, interesting story, but it's not really going to happen that often. So
Yeah.
unless there's some sort of traumatic event. And, people typically you only have so much energy. Are you really going to spend it moving your whole communication life and convincing people to join you somewhere else?
And I know this seems like a side project, but I think Twitter is one of the major platforms that all these people use. And all these people being a lot of the people I've invited on, either as our musical guest or just they're in the art community.
Yeah.
And Twitter is, unfortunately to me, but is one of the
Twitter
best
and
ways,
Instagram.
to basically kind of get out your messages and stuff. And so if you abandon Twitter, Mastodon, they had a 60% increase over the past couple of weeks, and they still aren't at 1 million users.
Yeah, totally.
And they're sustainable and all that stuff. And I'm not saying, again, I'm not commenting on Mastodon being good or not, but Twitter could lose half their people, and they would still have 100 times more people than what's on Mastodon.
Yeah,
and that's something that we need to. So if you're a musician and you're trying to get your stuff out, Mastodon might be a better market in the sense that, hey, you're going to have a group of people that are going to buy your stuff because there's not as much noise. But if you want to hit everybody, you're going to have to find another way of getting those millions of people.
And you're more likely to see people cancel their accounts over mental health effects than wanting to go do that on another platform.
Yeah.
Because if it's just communicating with your friends, you'll email, text message them. There's other ways to do it easily without
people starting still use email.
Yeah.
If you would like to learn more about the New Next podcast, find us at thenewnextpodcast.com, where you can suggest a topic you would like for us to cover. If you enjoyed what you heard, share the podcast, tell a friend about it, or rate us with 5 stars.